Hey, yo, how are y'all? Welcome back to the channel. Welcome back to Culture Voice Reviews. We are back with another reaction, another video for y'all. Today's video is from a channel called Sensei Speaks, and it's on the importance of the Boondocks. So, without any further ado, let's get into it.
Growing up in the time that I did, which was the early 90s, early 2000s, a lot of times on TV, whether it was cartoons or TV series in general, there wasn't a ton of black representation, specifically
hmm
with shows that were animated. Of course, you had some culture classics like Martin, Family Matters, The Cosby Show, etc., but most of those shows were live action. Because of this, a lot of times growing up, I longed for black representation in cartoon. And honestly, a lot of times we didn't get it. There were a few, but to the mass majority, we were just a loud minority. And that's why today I wanted to bring something a little different and start a new series on this channel where I deep dive into certain animated cartoons or just shows in general that I liked a lot and really talk about what made them special to me. So, with that being said, today I'm bringing you the importance of
Ooh, look at
Boondocks.
them hands.
Having that dream where you made the white people riot, weren't you? Boondocks was special to me because it was something that I could relate to a lot. In a lot of different ways, I longed for the life that Huey and Riley had. They came from a tough part of Chicago and ended up moving in with their grandfather in the suburbs. Now, what made this something that I would have liked to share was the fact that I grew up in a really tough neighborhood. Most of my life, I've lived in the projects or in an area that wasn't deemed like safe. So to see two young black youths move into the suburbs with their grandfather to live a better life, it was something that I was interested in right off the rip. I quickly learned that this show was going to be a culture classic, stepping right into the first episode. The garden party was a special episode, man. It started off with Huey having a dream that he was around a bunch of white people at a garden party, and he was kind of preaching to them. The first lines in the story were, Jesus was black, Ronald Reagan is the devil, and the government was lying about 9/11.
Which
So right
is
off the bat, you
true.
can see where they were going with this show. A lot of times they kind of walk that rope between what needs to be said and what might deem to be offensive by some. I respected a lot of the choices that they made in Boondocks because a lot of times shows would take the more PG route and kind of steer away from saying things that I felt needed to be said. They held no punches here though. This first episode really touched on a problem I feel like a lot of us face in life, being black brothers and sisters, and that's simply fitting in. Because what's fitting in and what's selling out? I think that's a question that we kind of suffer with every day. Sometimes I want to make decisions that I think will be safer, but I feel like I'm selling out and I'm not being myself. Show of hands real quick in the comments. Anybody here that's a minority can answer this question. How many times in the workplace have you made a decision that you felt was safer, although you knew it wasn't you really being yourself? This is something
We've
that
all
us
done
in the
that.
professional world would call whitewashing or code switching, something that Granddad seemed to be doing around his white neighbors. Now, I wasn't judging Granddad when I seen it in the episode because I'd be being a hypocrite. There's been a bunch of times that I've done this, but I think it was nice that they touched on this and they showed differences in what Granddad was doing and what Huey was trying to do. Huey was being himself at the garden party, and I think the thing that was so cool about this was the fact that the white people were eating it up, showing that being yourself can sometimes be the best decision, but also showing white people doing what white people do best at times, and that's kind of treating us like a circus act. There's been a bunch of times in life where I've just been being myself, but sometimes white people fetishize being black. They look at it as interesting or something that they want to admire or aspire to be. And that's why a lot of times people try to mimic the things that we do in our culture.
Yeah, that's why I want
I'll
to
see
act
you later.
black.
Bye. Yo, what's up, B? How you feeling? What's going on? Yo, let's bounce, son. Some may take it as flattery, some may see it as them being corny, but I mean,
Culture
either way,
vultures.
it happens. And they showed a good depiction of this at the garden party episode. This whole show was basically a culture shock for Huey and Riley. And speaking of Huey and Riley, I kind of want to dig into the characters a little bit because there was a dichotomy between each character. Granddad being his granddad's self. I think Granddad's character is pretty interesting. It was a loving take and spin on most black grandfathers. My grandfather was like granddad in a lot of ways, and I think that's what made his character so endearing. It kind of feels like you're right at home. Huey being the political side and the person of logic, which was really important in this show because Riley's character was kind of a polar opposite of
Riley was
Huey's.
wilding
Riley was a
out.
depiction of a regular black youth around that time and around that age range. Somebody who loved hip hop music, telling jokes, and just keeping up with the trends. They chose to give us a lot of the trendy things that were happening in the world through Riley's character, which I liked a lot. For instance, another time they pushed the envelope with something trendy was the Pause episode. Now, I know y'all know my channel and y'all know me, and I say pause a lot. Pause is
Pause.
just something you say when somebody says something a little zesty, a little sus. You just be like, pause. And this episode is so funny because, honestly, I feel like pause is a new thing, but looking back, it's something that has been going on for a very long time. It feels like the Mandela effect a little bit, honestly. My little brother had an old YouTube channel, and recently we went back and watched some of the videos, and he said pause in like 2008. It was crazy to think that we were saying it back then. I really don't remember doing it, but it's video evidence, right? Pause, granddad, a sentence heard around the world. One of the best memes that came out of Boondocks, but one of the most controversial episodes. I remember when this episode dropped, there was a lot of controversy on social medias, but we were in a much less progressive time then, so a lot of the things that Boondocks were doing, people just let slide. But in this episode specifically, we were touching on a few things here. Toxic masculinity in the black household, but also sexuality. It was an episode where they made fun of Tyler Perry, which I think is very relevant for this topic, because Tyler Perry at the times was making movies with Medea, a character in which he dressed up like a woman. They always choose to use Riley's character as the black youth and the person that keeps up with the times. Through this, we learn about pause and how toxic masculinity can actually get in within the black family. Let me ask y'all another question for those listening. How many times as a black youth did you grow up in a household and you wanted to try something or wanted to do something a little differently, but you were afraid of how your male counterparts would look at you? Maybe
Yeah,
it's
we've
your
all been
father,
there.
your uncle, your cousins. Maybe it's just some of your friends outside, but either way, there were times where you might have wanted to try something new or do something new, but were afraid of what people would think. This was just another time Boondocks chose to talk about a topic that I think is very relevant to us as black people. But the thing that's so special about it, though, is the way that they went about it. They used comedy. Comedy is something that's really important because it's an easy way for black people to self-reflect and look at these hard topics in a way that feels like it's breaking the ice. If you came at us with toxic masculinity or homophobia and you shoved it in our face, we probably get defensive about it. But since it's given to us in a digestible way through these episodes, it's easier for us to swallow that. Pause. Get it? We've talked about a lot of different ways Boondocks kind of touches our black community, but I want to go into some of the things that made it aesthetically pleasing because the animation and the soundtracks in Boondocks were awesome. Having that flashy animation that sometimes felt like anime was special, but also having those hard Wu-Tang tracks in the background made it much more pleasing. It's an ongoing thing in the Boondocks fandom and community to say that Boondocks is an anime, a black anime, and in a lot of ways it feels
It
like that. As
is.
somebody who works on anime and manga content, I think that makes it so much more appealing to me. A great example of this is the Kickball episode, another
Yeah,
episode
they
with
were wilding
pristine
out.
animation that also touched on a problem that plagues our community: pride. Pride is the devil. Shout out to J. Cole. No poop bars on this one, though, Cole. But pride isn't something that just affects black people. It affects people in general, which is shown here through the different races involved. Many different people of color, but mainly black and people of Asian descent. In this episode, Huey was playing kickball for a team and was very, very good. But he ends up getting set up and he fake injures somebody. This puts Huey on a spiral and makes him not want to play kickball anymore until Ed Wunsler appears and tells him he needs him for a team. Basically, Ed Wunsler is playing against China for bragging rights, and he wants Huey back even though he was the one that set him up in the first place. And this is where pride gets kicked in, because of course Huey turns it down, but upon meeting the Chinese team's captain, his pride takes over. It would have been so easy for Huey to just give up and not play this game, not to fall for Ed Wunsler's tricks, but it was too late. That pride made him get in here, and because of that, a lot of people got hurt in his game, and Ed Munster just got what he wanted in the end. An example of a black person's pride taking over, but them just doing what the white man wants. But they're puppet masters, so I didn't really expect much different. Off of the political side of things, though, this episode was amazing, and one of those episodes that kept pushing this whole thing in the fandom of this show being an anime. Very Dragon Ball Z-esque in a lot of ways. I know that was crazy to say Dragon Ball Z-esque, but you know, we kind of make things up on this channel. Y'all gonna like it or love it. And if you don't, well, you already know what to do. Suck my dick, nigga. Moving on, though. This episode was fire. A lot of action and ended with an ultimate kickball attack from the homie Huey. Somebody that is very, very much involved in any of the anime-esque things in the show. There we go with the esque again. Anytime there's fighting involved, Huey is there. Like the theater episode where he fought Uncle Ruckus. Uncle Ruckus had the nunchucks going crazy, or the episode with the she killer wolf bitch and the Kumite. Again, he was getting punished, I ain't gonna lie, but he was fighting though. But when Stay Meter came back and he possessed Tom, once again Huey in there scrapping. My favorite fighting episode though is the one where him and Riley got into it. Granddad had left some money for him, and him and Riley got into it in the crib over it. Riley was doing this thing, I ain't gonna lie, but Huey just too nice with it. Boondocks is a show that will never die, and it's so important for the black community because it was the first time, in my opinion, we got true representation that also touched on all of the
Well, the
political things
hypocrisy
that
also,
it
that was
needed
an
to.
amazing
Everything
fighting
we kind of
episode.
were going through our lives as black people, it touched on it in some way, and I think that's why it'll always live. If there's going to be a time capsule for our black culture, the Boondocks is definitely in it. A beautiful show set in a beautiful setting that touched on a lot of beautiful things. To the creators of Boondocks, I commend you, I respect you, we love your show. Peace.
We go, and that's the end of the video. Tell me, what are your favorite memories about the Boondocks? What makes the Boondocks important to you? Why do you like it? Why do you love it? Yeah, please subscribe to Sensei Speaks. Subscribe to his channel. A link should be down below in the description for you to check out his channel, to check out more of his work. Also, subscribe to our channel and help us reach 2,000 subscribers. Thank you so much for tuning in. Peace.